This is Street Talk with Chris Davies, helping you maneuver the road of real estate. Get up to speed with expert insights on the mortgage industry and your Northwest stomping grounds. Buy, sell, invest, and rest. Street Talk, now. With this panel of industry insiders, here's Chris Davies.
Good morning, Seattle. Good morning to the Pacific Northwest. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023 and all the real estate things that can happen. It's so good to share this New Year's Day with you. I'm joined by Mr. Dylan Wolf of Windermere. Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Chris. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm super excited to start the year off with everyone. So, yeah, let's get this show started.
And then we also have Mr. Robert Bonner of Bonner Designs. Hey, Robert.
Howdy. Happy New Year. Great to be back and excited to talk about the street.
You know, it's been, I don't know how to, I always think it's good to reflect with the start of a new year, sort of look back a little bit on 2022 and then also obviously go back and look forward to what's going to occur in 2023. But to say that 2022 from a real estate perspective, it was pretty tumultuous.
It was a roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
You start out with rates in the threes in January, and you end up with rates around 6.5. According to Mortgage News Daily, it says 6.54 to end the year. So, rates more than doubled. Affordability, house payments for the same sort of mortgage went up by 60% plus. So that puts a little crunch on the affordability of things. However, house prices peaked in May. We're still seeing year-over-year increases, but from May to December, probably a slight decline.
Yeah, so we've definitely seen a lot of decline in home prices lately, and I think when you definitely look at October when interest rates were probably at the highest peak of this year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and if you compare home prices now in the Seattle area, in October they were around 950,000, and that now dropped to 905,000 in November. So yeah, that definitely had an impact.
And those are Windermere numbers, correct?
Yes. Well, and they pull that from the MLS.
Yeah.
So these.
Fantastic. And Robert, from your business, I mean, I would imagine that more and more people would be interested in doing more to their homes versus maybe going out and buying new when rates surge.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to also, have a source like you where we can, collaborate. And, I got some homes that are in almost completion. We got one in Lake Hills, and that's a great way to advertise of what's possible. There's MN homes in the neighborhood, and people are like, do we want to tear down our home and rebuild and, cost us another $2 million, or do we redo our home and maybe it'll cost $1 million? So we're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff, and also retail, doing some restaurants. There's going to be a new restaurant coming to downtown Renton, Premier Meat Pies, and they got the fridges in and the freezers, and should be open maybe this month, January.
Wow! So you're seeing a lot of activity in relation. That brings up an interesting question. The way I look at it, I think one of the things going into 2023 is what's going to happen to the commercial real estate. I think the commercial leases and such, especially with the work from home philosophy, not necessarily going to a full on bore. You have to come into work unless it's Twitter, right? There seems to be a lot of businesses adapting, saying, you know what, we'll do a hybrid of sorts. So with that, the office space is not needed. We'll get into more of that in the next few segments. Folks, number to the show is 844 Talk 101. You can always email me, christopher.davies at movement.com. We'll be right back.
Maneuvering the road of real estate. This is Street Talk. Now, once again, back to your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate. You know, one of the things as we go into 2023, you start to see headlines all over the place about the real estate market, and most of them have a negative connotation to them. One of the headlines that you saw in the Times is housing prices are falling twice as fast in Seattle as anywhere else in the country. So, what does that mean? So, when you read the article, it said that this goes to the Case-Shiller Index, and the Case-Shiller Index is a trailing index depending on what you want to take from it, but it's off the top 20 cities within the U.S. So it's trailing by 2 months, so it goes back to October. It doesn't go to December. So what happened in October? In October, you saw rates hit an all-time high, surging to 7+%, and also at that point in time, that quite frankly, created a lot of panic, not just on the realtor side, but also on the lending side, just because you hadn't seen rates like that for almost 2 decades.
That's correct. I mean, we have, that was, I think this year was the steepest increase in rates that we have seen since the 80s. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times I speak to, some of my older clients, and they go like, oh, well, back in the day it was double digits. And, it was all relative, because now, if a house back then was like $80,000 and you paid a 70% interest rate, that's not really comparable to like a 7% interest on like a $500,000 or $600,000 house, or even higher here in the Seattle area. So,
well, that brings up a great point, though. What it brings up is it's not about rate or price; it's about the payment and whether you can afford the payment.
Exactly.
So, and also whether or not you have the down payment, if one's required, if that's available. So, it's about how you get into the house, and once you're in, then of course at that point in time you can start to establish equity over a period of time, either by paying the mortgage down, because the principal goes down, or by appreciation. Now, we've been lucky enough over the last decade or so that there's been great appreciation. But what gets missed through all of this is the fact that as you're making those monthly payments, you're actually paying that mortgage down.
Right.
So
I always call it a reverse savings account.
Right.
It's only a part that actually goes to the bank, and that's the interest piece.
But even then, part of the interest is deductible. And not only that, if you pay rent, you get none of those benefits.
Nope. You might get your deposit back.
So when it comes to things of that nature, that's how you build wealth. So, again, going back to that article, it said that house prices are falling twice as fast. Well,
that's on a month-to-month basis, right?
So what we're talking about is prices in September fell 0.5 percentage point, September to October. Year over year, though, the appreciation factor is still 4.5%. So actually, no. Prices August to September fell half a percentage point. Prices in September to October fell 1 percentage point. And part of this is it takes values into account from King, Snohomish, and Pierce.
Yeah.
And groups them all together, but you call it Seattle. So you have to be careful how you determine what that headline means.
And I also think that's important to look at, if for here I got the numbers for November in front of me, and we do see that the median sales price in King County is $827,000, and last year that was $820,000. And we have talked about this before on the show, and that we saw great gains in the beginning of the year, and that especially the second half, due to the rates, I would say the home prices came down, but you're still gaining equity.
Well, and it's not really. When we talk about owning a home, I think that gaining equity, yes, that's the long-term goal, but it's not the short. It shouldn't be your short-term goal. So, I mean, if you want to go talk about, I'm not a big fan of the median sales price, especially when there's not a lot of sales.
Yeah, because sales dropped significantly.
So sales are down tremendously. So I don't think your median price is going to be a great variable. I mean, the month before, the median price was 905,000.
Yeah,
So when we look at that,
but that was Seattle. This is King County.
okay, perfect. So, and then what was it in King County the month before?
The month before, I need to, 1 second. So I can tell you what it was in Seattle in November. So it was indeed 905, and last year was 850,000 in November in Seattle.
Okay.
So I'll get back to you about what it was last month.
So again, I'm not a big fan of the median sales price because as sales drop, then you're going to have a wider variation between high and low, which the median price is right in the middle, right? So I
Right.
think an average is probably a better example. But again, either way, I think long-term wise, if don't buy the house to flip it, because that's what people are looking at when they look at all these TV shows.
Yeah, we're out of that time frame.
Correct. Folks, number to the show, 844-TALK-101, or email me, christopher.davies at movement.com.
Now, back to Street Talk with your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate, joined by Mr. Robert Bonner of Bonner Designs. And Robert, you've got a few projects going, but I think when people take on a project, one of the daunting tasks is always how difficult is it to deal with the city or county. And I think you have a project going on right now in Sammamish, and you find them to be quite helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with the review. In Seattle, general cities have this. We have this portal called mybuildingpermits.com, and it is so handy now because of the past situation that happened, the pandemic. I got to say, online processes have been really streamlined and efficient. So with Sammamish, we're taking out a few trees, and you hear stories about how difficult that can be, and it can be a scary process because you don't know what the city might come back with. And all I got to say was Sammamish was great. The review was simple. They're straight to the point. We're in our first correction mode, just resubmitted, and looking for approval on that one. So that was great. I guess on the other side is we're doing one in Kirkland. And, Kirkland's kind of a strange city as, some permits are really nice and easy and simple. And some are just very complex and daunting, But I guess it just depends on the project, the design, the lot. Kirkland uses FAR, which is floor area ratio. And, just the rules and regulations and the laws that define that can be very complex to understand.
Well, would you say that when it comes to Kirkland, for example, they're going to be more stringent on like wetland issues or drainage issues and things of that nature because of the lot sizes that you have there?
Most definitely, yeah. They're very concerned about drainage, especially like, Juanita Hill, some of these areas next to rivers or streams or lakes. And also because of lot sizes, like you said, and figuring out FAR. So, like, for example, people don't always know this, but some of the basements actually aren't included into the square footage calculations. And that's a bonus. But if you don't understand that, then you might look at a property and go, oh, we can only build this much. Because say if you have a 3,000 square foot lot, you have a 50% FAR, that means you can only have a 1,500 square foot home. But that doesn't include what you can do in the basement if you have a sloped lot. But you just got to analyze that, understand it, and it's complex. But yeah.
Yeah, so in that situation, it actually would make a lot of sense from an architectural standpoint to go down and expand the basement or put a basement into play versus going up. Because the square footage going up would add square footage, but if you go down into the property and not necessarily have a daylight basement, but then you can actually create more square footage there. That way that's livable.
Exactly. And, as people say global warming is happening, I mean, my basement is a great area to go to during the heat. And I think it makes the house stronger, right? Because you can get deeper and more solid earth. And, we're doing a project in LA in Redondo Beach, and we've been going through design cycles. And in Redondo Beach, they actually have a design review before you can get the permit completed. And so with that, we're realizing through the design process how great it is to have that potential to gain that extra square footage with a basement.
Well, to me, it just makes a lot of sense, especially, when you start to look at what the cost of a home is, say, for example, in Kirkland, I mean, it's not that outrageous anymore to sort of hold the house on stilts while you dig down and make it bigger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's $1,000 a square foot it can be, and you could probably build that for half the price. It's like you're doubling your money. Why wouldn't you do it?
So, folks, number to the show, more to come. 844-TALK-101 or christopher.davies at movement.com.
When it comes to the mortgage industry and real estate, know the ropes, the ins and outs, and all the curves. This is Street Talk with Chris Davies, with a panel of industry insiders here to take your call. Now, back to Street Talk with Chris Davies.
Thanks so much for joining us. And again, Happy New Year to everyone, joined by Mr. Dylan Wolf from Windermere.
Welcome.
And Mr. Robert Bonner of Bonner Designs. One of the things that I always like to talk about, I mean, we had the huge revision in relation to density and lots and the upzoning that was allowed back in 2017. But it's taken a while for some of that to take hold with ADUs and DADUs. Those are attached dwelling units or detached dwelling units. There's a lot more activity on those. And you have some interesting projects going on in that regard, but also into, I think you have an interesting project going on in West Seattle.
Yeah. In Seattle, there are some historical lots that are already subdivided. And when you can find these are little gems, right? Because you got two lots. And you don't have to worry about getting it subdivided and all that. So we did one in West Seattle where there was an existing home. And we reutilized the existing foundation and basically built a new home on top of that. And to the right of it is a completely brand new home. And these homes sit on 3,000 square foot lots, and they're about 2,400 square feet. And they're 4-bedroom, 3.5 baths. So in the basement is a rental unit, and you have access off the side of the staircase from the side yard. And then main floor is all open plan with a garage with high ceilings. And the top floor is 3 bedrooms with a master suite in the rear with its own private deck and joint access through the walk-in closet for the laundry.
So that's interesting. So you mentioned the FAR restrictions that you have in Kirkland. Obviously, that's not the case in West Seattle. If you can put a 2,400 square foot house on a 3,000 square foot lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty
Probably goes
amazing
up.
because yeah, I mean, Seattle doesn't use FAR when it comes to residential. Not always. On the RSL, there is the FAR, but on some of the single family, you can actually get a bonus for having a small lot. So I really give kudos to Seattle with idea of this small lot development ahead of anybody in the King County area. I think it creates affordability, and when you look at it, it doesn't even look like it's a 3,000 square foot lot. It looks like it would be 5,000. But I think it allows affordability in Seattle, and through this we're creating something that would be a teardown and giving it a second chance, a new life.
I feel like I should bring Robert along with some of my clients looking at properties in Seattle.
Well, I mean, I think
Yeah, I mean that would be great.
I think I think perspective is always good, right?
Right.
Because sometimes we get stuck in our own thought processes, myself included. So when your opinion becomes a little bit myopic, then it's tough to see what the alternatives are. I mean, you take for example what's going on in the housing market, and we spoke about it a little bit. Even though the construction index for new home sales has gone down 9 months in a row, it looks like new home sales actually had their low back in July of this year, which is a little bit surprising because new home sales started out in January at 831,000 units. In July, we had 543,000 units, but in November, we had 640,000 units. So it's actually going up.
I wonder. I wonder if during that time, just more homes got completed, and therefore, and especially now with if you look at new construction, builders are offering great discounts on their homes now compared to like July.
Yeah. So if you want my opinion about whether you should be in the market or out of the market, gosh, you know what? Rates went up a quarter point. You've had 6 straight weeks of interest rate decreases or declines. And this last week, interest rates went up. Depending on what publication you look at, it went up by a quarter percentage point. But you know what? You can make that up if you put the right or you construct the offer to have a seller concession cover that buy down to get you that quarter point back.
Yeah.
So it should be something that should not stop you from getting involved, because you never know when that right house comes along that's perfect for you.
That 3-2-1 buy down is bigger than that quarter point increase.
Well, that's a great strategy too. It just depends on what your long-term view is, and we can certainly get into that as well. Folks, number to the show, 844-TALK-101, or go ahead and give me an email, christopher.davies at movement.com.
When it comes to the mortgage industry and real estate, know the ropes, the ins and outs, and all the curves. This is Street Talk with Chris Davies, with a panel of industry insiders here to take your call. Now, back to Street Talk with Chris Davies.
Welcome back, all things real estate. We're talking about housing and housing supply. New home sales seem to be ticking back up again. But, again, when you look at all the various articles that you see out there, for example, Redfin states that housing supply has jumped the most on record. 18% increase in housing. And within that article, they talk about the number of months of inventory being at 3.3. And again, I would just caution a little bit of, take a look at it through the actual lens that you need to look at it through. Nationally speaking, yes.
3.3, yeah.
You may be looking at 3.3. Locally, though, you're going to be around 2.
2.2, actually.
So So we have the expert right here in Dylan Wolf from Windermere. So you got 2.2 months, but we've been at 2 or below 2 for the most part for the year.
Yeah, and it's funny because 2.2, according to the experts behind it, you're not in a buyer's market yet because that or buyer's market happens at 3 months. But when you're out in the field and you're making offers, and you, as a buyer, you're in such a strong position because and it actually feels more like a buyer's market than a balanced market because you can definitely negotiate the price down on most homes that are on the market. You can negotiate credits back. So I would like to argue that, yeah, it might be a 2.2, but it does feel like a 3.3.
Okay, and I could agree. I think that I've seen more concessions over the last month, 2 months, than I've ever seen in relation to either the buy down mechanism. If you want to do a 2-1 buy down, 3-2-1 buy down, which I'll talk about a little bit more, or just buying the rate down straight to a 30-year fix where you want to get that payment. But again, it depends on what your strategy is. All these things sound fantastic, but it really depends on what your goal is when you're buying the house.
And I think that's where you come into play, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, is it going to be a 3-year hold? Is it going to be a 5-year hold? What's your strategy in relation to the home? Do you want it to? Is it going to be? Are you going to build a real estate portfolio and make it into a rental? There's all these different things. One of the interesting statistics that I saw in the article of Redfin is that your sale price ratio compared to list price, homes are selling at 98.1% over the last 4 weeks of what their list price was. That doesn't tell you that there's a whole huge drop, but I don't think what it takes into account is the concessions. Again, if you're going to hold on to the house for 3 years or more, it makes more sense to put the money into buying the rate down, making that payment more affordable than to take it off the price.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you need to look at every situation because it really depends on how much discount you get. But yeah, typically it is better to reduce the interest rate than the price. And to come back at the price difference is here in November, what it was actually your house would sell for 96% of the list price.
Okay.
For 51% of the homes here.
And that's the NMLS,
Oh,
which is,
sorry, 22% of the homes here. So,
again, that's going to be a bigger metric than what Redfin uses.
yeah.
And the other aspect of what they spoke about, the number of homes that had price drops month to month is 4.8% of the homes listed had price drops. The previous month, it was 6%. So that would tell you that the market's actually stabilizing a little bit.
That's good news.
They're only saying 6% of the homes are.
That's what they said in relation to active listings.
Yeah. So what we can see is that 51% of the homes that sold actually had to do a price change.
So, what does that tell you?
Well, our market is so different then. But that also it checks up with what we talked about earlier, that the Seattle market is one of the hardest cooling market in the country.
Well, I mean, it also appreciated a whole lot more than most markets in the country.
Definitely.
So when you look at that, the equity buildup that you've had over the last decade or so has been much more.
You're still making money.
So to have a slight decrease, and that's what we'll get into in the next coming segments. What is in store for us in 2023? That and so much more. Folks, number to the show, 844-TALK-101.
Now, back to Street Talk with your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate. As far as the phone number goes, let's use 206-421-1000. We're having a toll-free issue right now, and we'll have the tech people work on that. So again, use 206-421-1000. And we're talking about the market and what 2023. So Dylan, in your estimation, when you start to look at the market, what's
my hope?
your hope, your hot takes?
I think a lot of buyers and sellers are just looking at the market and going like, I kind of want to wait, until the interest come down, maybe prices come down. I've spoken to a lot of people that are basically waiting until like the springtime, until they start making a move, which I do think that we saw some good progression since October with the rates going down, and I truly hope that trend continues, but it all depends on the economic factors.
Yeah, and the idea of trying, it sounds to me like you're trying to time the market.
Yeah, and I don't believe that you can ever really time the market. In the end, if you're thinking of selling and you need to buy right away, you're doing a one-on-one exchange. So that won't really affect you as much what the market is doing.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about that here in the next few segments. Let's go to the phones and talk to Sam. Hey, Sam, it's Chris. Thanks for calling. What's your question today?
Well, I have a rental house that is located in Providence Hospital area, and I need to get money from that house. So I'm looking to sell, and I'm not sure, what's the best way to sell it, when might be the best time to sell it. I do know I have a 90-day notice that I've given to the renters, but I'm trying to figure out what's my next step.
And when you obviously it's been a rental for you, and you want to go ahead and liquidate and get some cash. So when you talk about the property itself, what sort of shape is the property in?
It's an older 1902 home it's in pretty good shape for an older home.
Okay, and I think whenever you start to talk about selling the house, I think the most important thing to do is to obviously consult and have somebody walk through the property to determine what potentially is possible, because they're going to be different price points. There's going to be the as-is price point. If it needs a little bit of work, there'll be the finished price point. There'll be different things that are going on with it. Dylan, what's your take?
Yeah, I think the local real estate agent over there, if you have someone, can definitely help you out on that front. And like Chris mentioned, it really matters on what in the end is your goal. Are you selling just to cash out, or are you selling to buy something else?
So, Sam, I'm going to keep you on hold because we're coming up to a hard break, and we'll discuss this a little bit more. Folks, 206-421-1000.
This is Street Talk with Chris Davies, helping you maneuver the road of real estate. Get up to speed with expert insights on the mortgage industry and your Northwest stomping grounds. Buy, sell, invest, and rest. Street Talk, now. With his panel of industry insiders, here's Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Sam. Hey, Sam, when you're talking about your property, what city is it located in? Because Providence has a number of different locations.
This is in Seattle.
Okay, so 1902 home in Seattle. How long have you had it as a rental?
25 years.
Oh. And do you have a mortgage on it, or is it owned free and clear?
Free and clear, but I have about $250,000 on a second loan because I'm in the process of building a new home, and that's why I'm needing to cash out, is to clear those loans.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So you're building another house. You utilize the equity and the rental to facilitate that process, which is fantastic. Where are you building out of curiosity?
In the Marysville area.
Okay. So you've given a 90-day notice to the tenants, which is great. That frees things up. You know, I think the most important thing how you start out or how you initiate that process is the first thing to do is to have somebody look at the property with you.
Yeah, Sam, if you would like to connect after the show, I would love to come by and give you my opinion on the price and show you how much you would gain if you would sell it in today's market.
Okay.
But, you know, you can also suggest what may need to be done because obviously when you're cashing out, you want to maximize your return on it. So if there's minor fix-ups that need to be done that can do that, you know, that would mean waiting until the tenants are out, per se, or selling as is with a longer close. So there's a few different strategies there that you can take into place. But you know,
It's definitely stuff that we can talk about to see what exactly needs to be done to maximize that profit for you.
and
If you can give me that contact information, I'd appreciate it.
yeah, well, I've got your number here, so we'll definitely give you a buzz after the show. The other aspect too is doing it now when rates have dropped a little bit. There's all sorts of things that you can look at as far as strategies go, and it's a fantastic question. The main driver for you is going to be what's going on with your Marysville home. When do you expect that house project to be completed, or how soon do you need the money to complete that project?
Within the next few months.
Okay.
Couple of months.
Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. And by the way, appreciate you calling the show. Anything else I can answer for you at this time?
I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
So again, you know, it's a great question. But we were talking previously about buyers that are out there in the market, and one of the most difficult things to do is to try and time this market. It's almost like when I equate it to trying to buy a stock.
Right.
You know, if you buy a blue chip stock, you buy it because of what the potential is. So whether you buy it at this price or that price, in the long run, it's going to go up.
Right.
Same thing holds true for real estate.
And we have seen it too many times, where people are telling me, like, hey, we want to wait because the prices are too high. But in the past few years, the interest rates were super low. Now that the prices are coming down, they want to wait because the interest rates are too high. So you can't really time it on a day-to-day base, and it definitely needs to be something more for the long run if you buy a house.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Folks, so much more to get to, more of Robert's projects to talk about. Again, the number to the show is 206-421-1000. We'll be right back.
When it comes to the mortgage industry and real estate, know the ropes, the ins and outs, and all the curves. This is Street Talk with Chris Davies, with a panel of industry insiders here to take your call. Now, back to Street Talk with Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, and I'll give out the numbers again. It's 833-TALK-101.
What is the number?
833-TALK-101. I had a faux pas a little bit earlier when I was using 844. That was the old number.
That was 2022.
So, again, 206-421-1000 also works, just so you have it. And also, talking about mortgages, Street Talk, we've aligned ourselves with Movement Mortgage. So when it comes to consideration for, getting a mortgage, please consider us. Movement is a fantastic company. They have a foundation. They do a lot of good things for the community. And not only that, they have fantastic loan products, whether it's HELOCs, reverse mortgages, conventional loans. It's the whole gamut.
And a fantastic loan officer, right?
Well, that goes without saying. Joking, but no, actually, it does go without saying. So there's a lot of different products, but that it's really behooves you to talk to a loan professional to find out what loan product or what situation is going to work best for you. And so
I think that's where the process always should start.
yeah, and the 833 number that I already given out, that's active all week long. You can reach me on that number, or you can reach me on my cell or on my email, christopher.davies@movement.com. So, Robert, in relation to projects that are ongoing in this particular market, would you say that people are doing large additions or doing modifications? What sort of modifications are you seeing as a because it's expensive to redo a house, especially when you start talking about additions. What are you seeing from your side as to what people are willing to take on? Oops.
Really nice. A couple moved here from Colorado. They're both doctors, and they decided to build a new master suite with a huge movie room down below it and with a guest suite. And they kept their original master suite as well. So it's a dual master suite with a movie theater down below. It's like 20 by 20 with 10-foot ceilings. And doing another one in Burien where, the parents are getting older. And so one of the brothers is going to move back in. And so we're going to do a whole new garage addition with basically a apartment ADU above it. We're not going to submit it as an ADU because they don't really want another power meter. But, that's a way to do it, too. Sometimes ADUs are restricted in size. Why not just add on to your home and not call it an ADU? So that's something that we do, too. If you want an ADU, we can give you an ADU. If you want a dad do, that's another thing as well. Like that project in L.A., that's super interesting because they have this thing called SB9 where you can do a front ADU. So we're doing a front ADU, 500 square foot kind of studio, and then we're doing a basement, a junior ADU is what they call it, and then we're doing a dad-do in the rear. The dad-do is almost completed. Homeowner is going to move into it, and then the family gets to watch their new home get built. And the front unit's going to be for his mother, and the basement unit is going to be for his mother-in-law.
That's not really something that you see over here a lot, front ADUs.
You don't, and but Seattle or this Washington State, we watch California and we go, that seems like a good idea. And I believe in the state law, it actually is approved where single family residents in all of Washington State, I believe, we can potentially do something similar.
So, quick question. I wasn't aware of the fact that do all ADUs get their own separate power meter?
I believe so. If it is attached, maybe not, but if detached, definitely.
If it's detached, definitely. I could see that. I mean, from a lending standpoint, if you have your own power meter, I mean, they would consider that to be more of a 2-unit type. But I guess if it's a licensed ADU, then I'm trying to think from a lending perspective how that would be taken into account.
Probably just one parcel number, right?
Yeah, one parcel number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the lending standpoint, you're still lending on one.
Yeah, but if it's 2 units, though, if you have a duplex versus a single family, that can affect the type of loan.
Yeah, of course.
So, but because an ADU would still be a single family residence, not a duplex.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, that's an interesting point. So those are like master suite additions for is that what you're seeing the most of, or are you seeing the addition of square footage making the house larger? I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, a combination of those two. A lot of master suite additions just because standards have greatly changed, kitchens as well. So repurposing space. We're doing a lot of repurposing. Like the one in Sammamish, we're reclaiming about, 300 square feet from the large garage and like where the furnace was. It wasn't being utilized. That now is the new mudroom. And part of the garage becomes a new bathroom and a hallway to another mother-in-law. So this one's a master bedroom addition in Tahali. And below the master suite is going to be the parents' suite. So parents are moving back home. And they had a huge basement, and we reclaimed some of that space and created another bedroom. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms,
Wow.
4.5 baths, in a 3,800 square foot home that was like 2,400
Well,
square
let's
feet.
talk about that more in the next segment. Folks, again, the number to the show, 833-TALK-101 or 206-421-1000. We'll be right back.
Maneuvering the road of real estate. This is Street Talk. Now, once again, back to your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate, talking about projects, what people are doing. It brings up an interesting point because I'm sure from the real estate side, if somebody has a 3% mortgage, and they want to downgrade, by downgrade, or they want to size down,
Yeah.
the idea of sizing down and going to a 6% mortgage doesn't sound too attractive. So they're more likely to stay in a 3% mortgage,
Right.
and not size. So, when looking at what's going to happen in 2023, I think that the market will continue to remain tight.
Yeah, and I think we probably are looking at more like a 2018 market. Is my guess. So it was a little bit tighter. Sales would still happen because people still need to move, right? Because there's always reasons why birth, divorce, all kinds of reasons. So, I mean, if that happens, yeah, sales will happen.
No, I think there's going to be sales, but I'm just talking about the number of listings that are coming to market. You've got builders out there that have pulled back a little bit because of the resulting interest rate increases. So they've slowed their production down,
Yeah.
thinking that's going to be harder to sell homes. Meanwhile, you still have new house formations or family creations on a year-to-year basis that are continuing to go up. Again, I think all these things will lead to a inventory situation that is not going to be conducive to getting to 4 months worth of inventory or 5 months worth of inventory. If we go back to 2008, which a lot of people want to compare this market to, talking about the doom and gloom of things, back then, the inventory situation was 10 months.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly more as
A
far
whole
as.
different perspective.
Say that again, Robert?
That's a whole, different perspective when you look at it that way. 10 months of inventory. And then, talking about predictions, it's like, just sharing that project in California. And if that same thing is possible here, imagine what that would do for the average homeowner. What kind of equity would you have in your property now if you have that potential of creating other types of income?
Yeah, and I look at it from a perspective, the reason I bring some of these things up, the idea of putting money into your existing property, it costs it costs quite a bit to
Yeah.
buy and sell.
I don't think that the average person can actually add additions to a house like a lot of Robert's people do, right? Because when I go through a home and they have indeed a mortgage with a 6% interest rate, uh, they don't have the monthly funds any more left. So the question is more, how much are you willing to do yourself to your home to make it to your standards? Are you willing to do some do-it-yourself projects? And I'm not talking about full additions, but more like replacing doors, stuff like that that could
I,
improve the aesthetics.
Oh, I think that really opens the Pandora's box. You walk through a house. I think from a even from a listing appointment side, if you're the active agent, or from a buyer side, or from an architecture side, a lot of times you can tell when it's been DIY, and so. By DIY I mean do it yourself versus being done professionally. So,
Yeah.
if a person's handy, great. If a person's not handy, doesn't know how to do it, or you just watch that Home and Garden channel, don't attempt it. Folks, we'll be right back.
Now, back to Street Talk with your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, and a quick notification to Robert, you dropped the call, so you may want to call back in again. So, we're talking about different things, and when it comes to homes and things of that nature, part of the reason why I was talking about the interest rate phenomenon as to what happened last year, I mean, at the start of last year, interest rates were around 3, and we ended up at 6.5.
Yep.
But that doesn't really tell the story as to what happened during 2022. It's the rapid rise of those interest rates and the up and downness of what happened, not only with interest rates, but gosh, if you look at the stock market, I mean, 1 minute it's up, next minute it's down. It closed the year on a slide, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that uncertainty that creates that also creates hesitancy when it comes to buying.
Yeah, the rapid rise, exactly. That was probably one of the hardest things of 2022, because you could go in at being pre-approved at a 4.5% rate, and then suddenly, like a week later, you were pre-approved at a 5.5% rate. But with every percentage increase, you kind of diminish your buying power, but about 10%, right? So
Well, it creates uncertainty.
yeah,
When you have uncertainty, what that means is people at that point don't know really what direction to take. So part of what's going to happen in 2023 is the fact that I think you're not going to see that tumultuousness. I think rates will steady.
yeah,
Right now, we're mid to low sixes. We'll probably see fives,
at some
point. At some point, especially as inflation eases. I mean, again, a lot of pundits are saying that inflation has peaked. But folks, if there's still inflation, again, the Fed has a target rate of 2%. If inflation, even if it has peaked, and you're in the sixes, they're still going to keep raising rates until they get it back down to the twos.
right.
So, there's going to be quite a few rate increases coming. Now, it may be a quarter point with each of the meetings. There's 9 meetings next year, first one in January. So we'll see what that pulls in. But
And we have seen it over the past year with rate increases. Doesn't always mean that the interest rate also increases at the same speed.
that is also correct because, what the Fed affects is the federal funds rate, not necessarily your 30-year fixed mortgage rate. However, when the Fed does increase their rates, in the long term, that will lead to mortgage rates going up. So it just depends upon how quickly
Yeah.
when do they reverse course? Most people aren't thinking that they'll actually reverse course until 2024, where, it depends on how much damage gets done with all the rate increases that they're doing.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's especially since I'm more heavy on the buyer side, it's more important for me that the rates are stable and that we can go out shopping with our clients, look at homes, and we don't really have to worry about potential rate increases that were as volatile as in 2022, because that doesn't really help. In the end, it doesn't really matter if an interest rate is 6.5% or 5.5% because they go to people like you, loan officers, Chris, to get pre-approved and they know what they can afford and to stay in budget. And I was,
Yeah, again, I think that there are a lot of different people out there trying to time the market, and I think timing the market is one of the mistakes, because one of the things that you'll see right now when you go out there and you start to look at homes, there is more inventory out there, even though the inventory is at 2 months. There is more inventory. There's less competition for the homes.
you can think about it.
And also maybe you'll have the right house come along that checks all your boxes. I mean, over the last 3 to 4 years, when have you been able to find a house that checks every single box that you want?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't necessarily about checking all the boxes. It was about either location or payment,
Right.
meaning you had to move further out.
And a lot of times we could get both, but
Just depends, right?
yeah.
But now you have that ability where there is not as much competition, where you can actually take your time a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, if rates do drop in the future, you can also take advantage of that as well by refinancing. Temporarily, there are so many different options out there, whether it's a 2-1 buy down. What a 2-1 buy down is, for the listeners out there, that just means if it's a 2-1 buy down, your normal interest rate is reduced 2% in year 1, 1% in year 2, and then it goes to your normal interest rate in year 3. So at 6.5%, it would be 4.5% in year 1, 5.5% in year 2, and then 6.5% for the remainder of your 30-year fixed.
And what if the interest rates drop and you want to lock it after
Then
a year?
We'll talk about that in the next segment. 833 Talk 101.
You're listening to Street Talk with Chris Davies, helping you maneuver the road of real estate. With an ear to the pavement of our Northwest stomping grounds, here's Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate. Received an email question from Sandy, and essentially the question revolves around moving. In the next year, we'll move to California. Wondering about moving out of state before selling their current home.
Comes down to finances.
Yeah, I'm not super interested in completely moving out of state to stage our home. So, the interesting component to that question is, one, people normally sell their house before they move because they need the money or they can't afford both payments.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can afford to move and also buy another place and carry 2 payments for a short period of time, then that is one way to do it.
Yeah, or rent out your house for a period of time.
You can also, but then you're not going to be able to list it to get the money. It depends, right? So some people will actually choose exactly that, Dylan.
Yeah.
They'll actually get a HELOC on the house. So typically what happens is if you've been in your house for a while, you've established quite a bit of equity in it. So what a person will normally do is they'll get a HELOC or line of credit. They'll establish that before any sort of move occurs. And then the HELOC is what they'll draw upon to buy or put down on the other home.
Right.
In addition to that, they may choose to rent the house out, especially if they have a lower interest rate mortgage. Because let's face it, if you've got a mortgage in the 3s, it's worth money because the replacement of it is in the 6s. So you can probably cash flow that pretty well compared to rising rents. Rents have gone up, depending on the market, 20%, 39%, depending on what city you're in. So rents have gone up quite a bit over the last couple of years. So you can cash flow that, wait for this, I don't want to call it a housing recession, but wait for this housing doldrum to pass, and then actually put money into the house to get it ready to sell.
But it also gives you some time to, if you do put it on the market, to because the average home stays on the market. What is it? 61 days, and then they need to do a price change, and then it sells. So if you're in a situation like that, then that HELOC definitely gives you the money or the funds to be able to move and don't think about that, and to give you that time frame.
And so the other aspect of it is if you can afford both payments, then you don't have to rent it. If you can't afford both payments, you would need to rent out your current residence to be able to buy the place out of state. But there's obviously more questions, so I do have your contact information, so I'll give you a buzz on that as well and go over it with you in more detail. But there's certainly moving and holding onto your place that happens frequently because most people don't want to move 3 times. Move out, hold on, move into a rental, look for a place, find a place, move out of the rental, move into so you're moving a couple of different on a couple of different occasions. And Kingsgate is a tremendous area.
Yeah, with the light rail and everything.
Well, Kingsgate, in Kirkland. I mean, I think it's a wonderful area as far as location goes.
Yeah.
Close to Microsoft, close to Google, access to the freeways. I lived there for many years, so I think Kingsgate is a fantastic area, and the appreciation that's occurred over the last few years, especially when you consider it. Kingsgate's more of a split-level neighborhood, so a lot of split-level homes there. But Robert, you had a fantastic remodel that you did. I think it was not Kingsgate necessarily, but it was Houghton. That was sort of a split-level type house.
Yeah, and that one that we just got approved is east of Kingsgate.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that one in Houghton, I think that was quite the investment. So, folks, number to the show, 833-TALK-101. We'll be right back.
Maneuvering the road of real estate. This is Street Talk. Now, once again, back to your host, Chris Davies.
Welcome back to Street Talk, all things real estate. As we approach the end of the show, we've talked a little bit about some of the events of 2022 and also what to, some of the things to expect moving forward to 2023. Dylan and Robert will give out their contact information here shortly, but quick question for you guys. When it comes to, revamping the house, redoing certain things on the home, what is your opinion when, we spoke a little bit about kitchen remodels. What is the opinion here on high-end kitchen appliances? Because the cost of appliances varies quite a bit depending on brand name and such. So, do you go with the Wolf stove versus the GE stove? What's your opinion on high-end kitchen appliances? Worth it or not worth it?
I think it depends on you as a person. How often are you actually in the kitchen and using it? Are you more like a professional chef? Then yeah, definitely go for the Wolf one. But it also depends on the house itself, the aesthetics, and does it match a house? Because if you have a $2 million house, but you have a GE appliance in there, it's probably not the best match for potential buyers. But a high-end Wolf or a Sub-Zero fridge or something like that, that would definitely fit in there.
Robert?
I like function, right? Function is the most important thing. Name brand might not be, or finding stuff from different countries, right? Like Lieberhart, they're from Germany, and they make heavy equipment. They make cranes, and they make refrigerators, and they are the most beautiful functional pieces of art, sculpture. Like if you made a one-off, how much would that fridge be worth? So maybe $4,000 isn't a bad price, and compared to Sub-Zero, I think it's a bargain. And then there's Blue Star. Not the prettiest, range, but the functionality is just awesome, right? Because you can take out that star, the range star. You can take it out, put a wok in there, and it fits in perfectly. Or you can raise the star 3 times to get it higher off of the flame. So it's just amazing function, highest BTUs in the market, and made in America.
Well, I like the answer of function. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, nice job. Dylan, how can people get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me by calling me at 253-249-1221. I repeat, 253-249-1221. Or email me, dylan@thewolfsnest.com, or my website, thewolfsnest.com.
Fantastic. And Robert, for design consultation or ideas or to gain your services, how can people contact you?
Text is really good, and that's also my phone number, 425-279-3317. And you can visit me at my website, Bonner Designs with the S on the end.com. Right there, you can also reach out to me, and it'll send me a email message, and you can see some of the stuff that we can do for you.
Fantastic. Folks, when it comes to financing any of these projects, whether it's a project that Robert is doing or a purchase through Dylan, you can always get a hold of me. The number is 206-856-5438. The 833 Talk 101 number is live all week. So if there's questions about the show, that number is continually forwarded to the cell phone. You can always check out podcasts at streettalkfinancial.com. And make it a fantastic Sunday. We shall see you next week, and welcome to 2023, and go Hawks.
Happy New Year again.